Hello everybody and welcome back to Love English with Leila and Sabrah. I'm Sabrah. Now recently on Love English we've been really focusing on building and expanding your vocabulary, which will of course help you in all other areas of English. So today we're carrying on with that theme, we're continuing with that theme, and we're going to be looking at very common, very normal English verbs, but they're more advanced and interesting versions. So on today's lesson guys, 50 advanced English verbs. Whew. Are you ready? Before we get started guys, don't forget to subscribe, click that lovely red button, and also you can follow us on our social media. But as well as that guys, you can visit our website www.loveenglish.co.uk and you can actually get a free sample of our coming ebook, which is all about building and learning new vocabulary. So you can get a free sample of that on our website, the link is there. Guys, don't forget to try and use these verbs that we're going to learn in a sentence below in the comments, and I will check it for you if you do leave me a comment with one of these verbs. Okay everybody, so number one, we're going to look at synonyms for the verb to drink. So the first verb is to sip, to sip. And to sip means to drink something slowly, to have a small amount at a time. So for example, people generally sip tea or they sip coffee. They don't drink it all down at once. They take little amounts at a time. This is called to sip. The second verb is to slurp. To slurp, quite an onomatopoeic verb, meaning it actually sounds like what it is. This is when somebody drinks something very noisily, so you can actually hear them drinking. For example, if they're drinking tea and they go like this, they're slurping their tea. The next verb is to down a drink. And this means to drink the drink all at once. For example, if you're in a hurry and you need to quickly drink your drink, you might quickly down it. However, I have to say that the most common use of this verb is when you're drinking alcohol and your friends are encouraging you to drink it all in one go, and they might say, go on, down it, and this means drink your drink. I do not recommend that though, guys. Bad headache the next day. Okay, moving on to synonyms of the verb to eat. There are many different ways, guys, to eat something, so in English we have different verbs to describe different ways of eating something. First we have to crunch, to crunch. I explained this verb actually in my last video on how to learn 100 English verbs a day, which is up there. So to crunch means to eat something noisily, usually because the food has to be eaten noisily. For example, crisps, carrots, peppers. If you eat them, you're going to make a noise as you're chewing them, so you crunch it. Next verb, very similar sound, is to munch. If you munch something, you eat something steadily, so you keep eating it. You need to eat it for a while to really be able to swallow it. And also often if you're munching something, you'll also make a bit of a noise. So often we describe animals as munching things. For example, cows or horses will munch grass or hay. They'll be chewing it for a while. They're munching it. Okay, the next verb is to scoff. To scoff. And to scoff means to eat something quickly, usually because it's very tasty or you're in a rush. If you scoff it, you eat it very, very quickly. This is quite an informal verb, but we do use it all the time. So we might say, wow, she must be enjoying that, she's really scoffing it, or she's scoffing it down. Now a little bit of homework for you guys, as the verb scoff actually has a second meaning. So I want you to go away and research it and tell me in the comments below what you have found out that it means. Number 7 is to nibble. And this means to take little bites of something, to eat it slowly. So normally we nibble on a snack, for example, crisps or nuts. In fact, they can be called nibbles. If you're going to a person's house for dinner, often before the dinner there might be some snacks put out for the guests to nibble on. Number 8 is to chomp. And this means to eat something quite noisily again, or where you're chewing it a lot, where you need to really chew it. This can be things like, for example, toffees and sweets, where you really have to chew them. Okay guys, now we're looking at alternatives to the verb to walk. There are many different ways that people can walk, and so we have different verbs to describe different manners of walking. Number 9 is to stroll. And this means to walk in a relaxed way. If you're strolling, you don't need to get anywhere in a hurry. You're taking your time, you're relaxing. You can say, for example, we went for a stroll in the park. Next verb is to stride. To stride means that you take big and long steps and with a purpose. So you want to get somewhere or you want to show people that you're confident. Quite a lot of men actually will stride. They know that they've got to get somewhere quickly, so they'll take big steps and they might be walking with confidence. So they stride. Number 11, I love this verb. This is to strut. To strut. And this is perhaps particularly used to describe the way that women walk. If you strut, you walk in a way in which you're showing off in some way. So you're walking very, very confidently, again, probably taking quite big steps, but you're walking with attitude, so you're walking to show yourself off. So often girls in high heels and things like that, they'll strut into a bar. Number 12, again, this one is one of my favourite verbs, and this is to swagger. To swagger. And to swagger means to walk in a way, again, that you're showing off, you're walking quite confidently, but it's also a way to show that you're perhaps a little bit rebellious. So, for example, in American movies, gangsters will swagger. They'll walk with attitude to show who they are and show how important they are and things like that. Number 13, to dawdle. To dawdle. If you dawdle, you walk slowly, you check your phone. Maybe you're trying to actually avoid continuing. So for example, sometimes our parents, when we were younger, might have said to us, stop dawdling, we need to get to school. Now we're looking at synonyms of the verb to speak and the verb to talk.
Stop yelling at me, we're yelling at you, we're yelling at Cosmo, we're yelling at me!
So can you guess what that was? That was actually yell or shout. So if you're yelling, you're shouting, maybe you're shouting across a room, or you yell at somebody if you're angry, things like that. Okay guys, so next on Love English, we'll be looking at a very secret topic. I can't tell you yet because, well, it's a big secret. Okay everybody, now what could that one be? It was of course to whisper. If you whisper, you are saying something very quietly in somebody's ear usually, and normally it's because you don't want other people to hear what you're saying, so it's secret. This one, guys, is to mumble. To mumble. If you mumble, you don't speak clearly, you don't speak loudly, and you don't speak clearly. Often students in a class, particularly teenagers, if they don't want to answer the teacher, they might mumble. They might say, I don't know what the answer to that one is. Next one is to mutter. To mutter is actually very similar in meaning to mumble. But people can mutter to themselves. So for example, people might mutter to themselves about things they have to do that day. They might say, well, then I've got to remember to do that, and I've got to get some oil for the car. So number 18 is to debate. And this means to argue about something, but in a more formal way. If you debate something, you look at the different sides of the argument and you present your case for or against something. And often you will go against a particular person or a particular group of people. Okay, number 19 is to dispute something. And this means that you disagree strongly about something. So if you dispute something, you say that something isn't correct. So you might dispute somebody's idea. Or you might legally dispute something. For example, if somebody says you damaged their car, you could actually dispute this with the police and say, no, you didn't, and completely disagree. Number 20 is to converse, and this just means to have a conversation. To converse means to talk in a conversational way. Okay, number 21 is the verb to stare. So this verb means to look at something for a long time. So basically, guys, to stare can mean that somebody stares at, for example, a painting in an art gallery. They are enjoying it so much they don't want to take their eyes off it, and so they stare at it. However, I think in most cultures around the world, to stare is considered quite rude if you don't know the person. It can make the other person feel uncomfortable.
And stop staring at me with them big old eyes!
Number 22 is to glance. To glance is just a quick look. So you might say, or I had a quick glance at the newspaper, but I couldn't see anything interesting, so I didn't read it. To peek is another quick look, but to peek is often when you are not supposed to look. So if you peek, you might peek through a doorway, for example, and see what's going on in another room where you shouldn't see what is going on. For example, when we're children and our parents are having a party and we're not allowed, we might peek through the doorway to see what they're all doing. To glimpse, again, is a quick look. If you glimpse something, you only see it quickly. So people who are bird watchers or people who like to go and look at nature, they often will only get a glimpse of the animal or the bird that they've been looking for. Just a quick look. Number 25 is the verb to gaze. This is like stare, but it's more with admiration and it's more polite. So if you gaze at something, you're finding it so beautiful that you don't want to stop looking at it. So people can gaze at a beautiful landscape, for example. They can gaze at each other in a loving way if they are a couple who are in love, for example. Number 26 is to squint. To squint, and this is when the sun is in your eye and you can't see very well, so you squint like this. Okay, now we're looking at synonyms for the verb to love. Actually, what's very interesting about English, unlike the Romance languages, is that we don't have very many ways to describe the verb to love. It's a bit worrying what that might say about us as people. So the main synonym of to love is to adore. To adore. And this means that you love that thing so much. If you say to somebody that you adore them, this is very, very strong in English. If we say that we adore a particular food or we adore a particular item of clothing, we love it so much. Okay, moving on to synonyms for the verb to hate. So number 28 is to detest. If you say you detest something, it's even stronger than hate. So you detest it, you really hate it. It's a very strong way to express hate or dislike. The next one is to despise. If you say you despise something or someone, again, you very, very strong way to say that you dislike or you hate something. To loathe. Again, strong feeling of dislike, perhaps not as strong as the other two, but we might say, for example, I loathe getting up so early in the morning. Number 31 is really a synonym of dislike, and it is to shun. To shun. If you shun someone or something, it's like you turn your back to them. So you are rejecting them, you don't want to know them, you don't want to speak to them. So you can shun a member of your family if you've had a big disagreement, for example. Number 32, strong way to communicate dislike is to say you abhor. You abhor something. It's quite a funny word actually, to abhor. So I can give you an example which I have to admit to, and this is that I abhor learning grammar. When I'm learning another language, I really don't like learning grammar. In fact, I abhor it. I much prefer speaking and communicating and learning the grammar. I really don't enjoy it, so I abhor it. I really dislike it. Okay, moving on to synonyms for the verb to think. Number 33 is the verb to ponder. To ponder. And this means to consider something, to wonder as well as another one. So if you're pondering something, you're thinking about it, but not in a rushed way or not in an intense way, in quite a relaxed way, so you can ponder the existence of life. Number 34 is to reckon. To reckon. And to reckon is an informal way really to say you think. So if you say, oh, I reckon it's going to rain tomorrow, or what do you reckon about this? You're asking the person, what do you think? To figure means to think, but also to be working something out, to be trying to understand it. So if you say, I figure it's going to take me 10 minutes to get home, you're saying, I've understood or I've worked out that it's going to take me this long to get home. Next, we have synonyms for the verb to work. So number 36 is the verb to exert. If you exert yourself, you use a lot of energy, you're putting a lot of effort into something. So you could say, I really exerted myself at the gym, I worked very hard. Number 37 is a more old-fashioned word, but you'll still see it in the newspapers and books and things like that. And this is to toil, to toil. Again, this means to work very hard. It has quite a negative connotation, toiling. It's almost like you're working without very much reward. Okay, moving on to a more pleasant topic now, and this is synonyms of the verb to enjoy. So number 38 is to relish. To relish. This means to be excited, to be delighted about this particular thing if you relish something. Number 39 is to savour. To savour. If you savour something, you enjoy it so much that you actually have it slowly and you really enjoy the taste of it or the experience of it. So you take it all in. You don't rush it, you absorb it and make sure that you're making the most of the experience. So if you savour a glass of wine, you'll sip it slowly. You'll smell it, you'll really have the whole experience of having that glass of wine. Number 40 is to bask. And normally we use this with in, because normally we bask in something. And this is where we enjoy something so much that we soak up the feeling. So for example, people can bask in the sun. Lizards and snakes and things like that, they typically bask in the sun. They enjoy it so much, they stay so still, getting all the sunlight. I also enjoy basking in the sun. Moving on to synonyms of the verb to annoy. So number 41 is to bother. Very simple synonym of annoy. If somebody is bothering you or something bothers you, you're saying it annoys you. It's something that you don't like. It makes you feel irritable or a bit angry. 42 is to pester. To pester is a strong way to annoy someone. If you pester them, you continue to try to annoy them. You continue to try to get a response from them. So for example, journalists will pester celebrities or pester politicians for an answer or for a reaction. They won't give up easily. Number 43. I absolutely love this expression or this verb which is in this expression, and it is to ruffle. To ruffle. We will often say that we ruffle someone's feathers, and this means that we annoy them. If we ruffle their feathers, we annoy them in a way that we've upset them, and it's like their feathers have been made a mess. If you imagine a bird with its feathers all in a mess, this is exactly what we mean about the person. 44 is to exasperate. To exasperate. And this is where you annoy and you frustrate the person. So if the person is exasperated, they feel really quite frustrated with the situation. Number 45, quite a simple one, this one, and this is just to irritate. So irritate is perhaps not as strong as to annoy. Irritate can just be that something annoys you a little bit. You can also say that something is irritating you, like this new cream I'm using is irritating my skin, it's making my skin red or itchy. Okay, only 5 to go. Now we're looking at synonyms of the verb to touch. So number 46 is to prod. If you prod someone, you poke them quite hard. So you'll prod them. Maybe you're trying to wake them up, or maybe you're trying to annoy them or something like this. But usually it's to get a reaction from them, you prod them. Number 47 is to flick. To flick. So if you flick somebody, it's not a very nice thing to do. But if you get, for example, a fly on your finger or some dust, you can flick it. So to flick. 48 is to pinch. To pinch someone is where you do this with 2 fingers and you pinch them. Not a very nice thing to do if you do it hard. But for example, parents and grandparents might gently pinch a child's cheek. So they'll say, oh, you're cute, or don't be cheeky. For example, they might gently pinch the cheek. Number 49 and number 50, these are lovely synonyms of the verb to hug. So number 49 is to cuddle. We use this particularly in situations where there is tenderness. Okay, it's a sweeter way to say this with perhaps more tenderness.
Just sit here. Yeah, okay.
Just like this.
The final one, number 50, is to embrace. To embrace is to hug somebody, but it's a more formal way to say that. So if you embrace, it's the same as hugging. But it can also mean to accept something completely. So you could say, I've really embraced my new healthy lifestyle. I've accepted it completely, I'm enjoying it. So this is another way to use the verb embrace. Okay guys, they were our 50 advanced English verbs. Whew, you did very well if you got to the end of this video. That's a lot of new vocabulary. Don't forget to try and use any of these verbs in a sentence below and I will check that for you. As always guys, it's been a pleasure to be with you. See you soon on Love English. Bye bye.